My name's Brian Rush. Welcome back to the lodge here at Rush Custom Callers YouTube channel. Let's have a seat and we're going to get back to the next episode. All right, so I got some notes in hand to stay focused on topics of conversation that I've talked about with customers, people, and seems to be pretty intriguing and more people want to hear about it. So first one, just breaking down a real coyote stand from where we start, where we set up, where the habitat is. We spend quite a bit of time e-scouting, looking at properties, and just waiting for that perfect predominant wind direction. Now, I don't like going out into the weather today. That hurts my face, it hurts my body. It's super cold, but the wind. It really isn't the temperature, it's the wind. The power of the wind will just cut through the clothing we're wearing, and it just makes life miserable. I like a wind that I can feel. I know exactly which way the wind is blowing from. I like that 5-mile-an-hour wind. I like the direction of knowing where that animal wants to get when I'm communicating to it. They hear it, they want to see it, they want to smell it. When we premeditate a stand, e-scouting, we're going to look at the habitat, the terrain, where we're going to park, where our access is, and how we're going to get in, where we're going to put boots on the ground, how we're going to approach the stand, and where we're going to want to call from. If the property doesn't dictate those conditions, we're just going to go somewhere else. We're going to put that one on the back burner and we're going to go somewhere else. So you can just totally booger up a stand before you even start. So breaking down that stand, you can ruin it before you even start. And the most simple of things, you don't slam the truck doors. Quiet, stealth mode, park, if we can, park by structure, barns, farms, houses, the landowner's driveway. Those are areas where there's frequent human traffic and you're not throwing up red flags. Those are typically areas where we're going to want to park in. We're going to want to have the approach from there. It makes it easier access for us. So that's typically where we're going to want to start a stand from, but you don't make a racket, you don't slam the truck doors. Something that I'm so religious with, and not broke, don't fix it, keep doing it. I have everything blacked out in my truck. Picture this, when you have your headlights on and your dashboard automatically deluminates and it gets a little darker when you have your headlights on, so your eyes can focus with the contrast of light. So when you park your vehicle and you turn your headlights off, your dashboard and all of your lights on your dash illuminate and it gets super bright inside of the cab of your vehicle. So everything in the cab of my vehicle is blacked out to help with my eye contrast. And so if any predator is out in the field, they don't see silhouettes moving around inside of a vehicle. So if you're enjoying the content, I'd really, truly appreciate it if you liked it and subscribed it. So breaking down that stand, you can burn it as soon as you start it. Very diligent approach, blacked out interior, the audible chimes are off, keys are out of the ignition, the door chimes aren't dinging when you open the doors. Everything's blacked out, stealth mode, super quiet, good approach, good wind direction on your approach. Your wind isn't blowing into habitat where you think the animal is. All of the things that you need to be diligent with when you're just starting a stand from start to finish. So that's just on the approach. So when we get out into a stand, what are we going to do? What's the time of year? How we're going to, like, what vocalizations are we going to make? How are we going to start calling? Are we coyotes doing coyote things? Or am I picking up a rabbit squealer and I'm giving prey distress sounds? It's going to be time of year, the areas that we're in, on how we start communicating to that animal. And when we communicate, that's when we become the destination point for that animal to come to our call. As long as our wind is not blowing into the habitat, we're comfortable calling the stand. So don't think for a minute, if the wind is hitting you in the back of the head, where is your wind blowing? That's where the coyote wants to go. If you have 2,000 yards of open field in front of you, habitat to your left, habitat to your right, and your scent cone is not blowing into that habitat straight ahead of you, where's the coyote eventually gonna wanna get? To your downwind, which is straight ahead of you. That's still a stand we would call. So just remember that. As long as your wind isn't blowing into the habitat where you expect the animal to be, go ahead and call the stand. You can get away with a lot, especially when the lights go out, but this is how that animal survives out in the field. Just remember that. So when we're calling, so this is another one. What do we do when a coyote hangs up? And that question is just another rabbit hole to go down. Do we see the coyote? What's the proximity to the coyote? Is the coyote hung up in habitat? Do we have a visual on it? Obviously, if the coyote hangs up and it's within our effective range to shoot, probably gonna shoot. But for those coyotes that hang up and they don't commit, what do we do with them? So what's the wind direction? If we have no approach, that coyote hangs up, we have a visual on that coyote. One thing is redirect the focus of attention and coaxing sounds. Lip squeak as loud as you possibly can at that coyote. There's a lot less threat associated with a mouse squeak, a vole squeak, to the catalyst of sound. If you're a rabbit squealer, what was the catalyst to sound? You could have been a fox, a bobcat, a coyote. You could be another mammal that was the catalyst for that prey to be in distress. If you're a coyote doing coyote things, you're vocalizing, and you have that coyote, that live coyote that just hangs up out there. It broke cover, now it's just hung up and it's audibly examining, it's watching, it's looking, it's listening, it's using its nose, it wants to know what you are. Revert back to those coaxing sounds, redirect the attention to that live coyote, because there's really no threat associated with a mouse squeak, a vole squeak, lip squeaks. Recaptivate attention, and hopefully there's more commitment to that coaxing sound, because there's really no threat associated with it. If none of that works and that coyote did not get a nose full of us, the next tactic is myself or my partner leaves and we just walk downwind. We get away from that coyote, but you leave a shooter. And that shooter stands there in silence. And this is straight up turkey and elk hunting tactics, where your caller drops back, they're leaving. Go ahead and have your partner howl. And you stand there in silence, and very good optimism that the live coyote hears the other coyote, which is your partner, leaving the property. The inquisitiveness picks up and you can draw them out of cover into an ethical shot for your shooter. Worst case scenario is just leave. Leave, take it as a lesson learned, come back to the property a respectable time frame later, come back with a plan of attack for approach and cut proximity, put a shooter closer to the habitat, have your caller hang back, get aggressive with it. Try to bring that coyote back out. This time of year, established family groups within their core areas and their home range, optimistic they're going to do the same thing the next time you go to the property, and hope for the best. These are all pieces of advice that have worked for us in the past. Excuse me. All right, so stay tuned. I got more info on this video, and please, as always, like and subscribe. It's a big help for me. All right, so how wind really affects calling. Touched base on it a little while ago. I don't like a very, very, very heavy wind. It's uncomfortable. Sound does not travel as far. I like hearing the coyotes respond back to me. I like knowing where I'm going. I like the proximity if I have to cut distance on it. So wind is a huge, huge factor. And how it actually affects my calling, I want to hear the animal. I like playing that cat and mouse game. If it's that windy, it's not comfortable, I can't hear them, I really don't even want to go out. So I typically don't even bother under heavy wind conditions. But that wind is going to interfere with your vocals and proximity. I want to know where they are. So if you're learning, if you're a little newer to it, have just a good breeze where you know where your downwind is. I typically don't go out calling during heavy wind conditions, but I like having a good breeze where I know where that downwind is going to be. All right, why your setups matter more than your call. And touched on that earlier. You can screw up a stand before you even start with your approach, and your setup is gonna be key for your success. Topographical features, giving yourself the best perspective on property that you're hunting adjacent to habitat, and putting yourself into a position where you have extremely good perspective towards your downwind, and you can see everything within your effective range to shoot. So don't leave the roll of the hill to your downwind side that's 80 yards away, and that coyote can be down in that dip and you'll never see him, and he's gone and you never hear him. Or they booger bark. That's a different story. I can touch on that a little bit. So calling coyotes in pressured areas. That was another one right here. Calling coyotes in pressured areas. I touched on that on another video with Pavlov's theory. Positive and negative reinforcement and conditioning an animal to an action with a sound. So you get into those properties that you have permission, Joe has permission, John has permission, everybody and their mother has permission to be there, but it holds coyotes. How do you beat those areas? Proximity is huge on your success. Cutting distance, getting as close as you possibly can to put yourself within your effective range to the habitat, not being lazy, parking the truck, stepping off of the road, sticking your body where you can legally call from, and trying to call a coyote 1,200 yards across the field. Put boots on the ground, stop being lazy, and go for a walk. Hike out there, cut proximity, start with those coaxing sounds. They're less threatening to the animal. There's more commitment to those coaxing sounds, and distance. Proximity is huge for your success. And I've said this before, treat the coyote like a turkey. Know when to call, learn the vocalizations, proximity, get as close as you can within your effective range to the fringes of habitat, and especially know when to shut up. If you disagree with me, give me your perspective. This is how we all learn. This is how we all excel. This is my perspective. This is my gospel. Take bits and pieces of the gospel, apply it to what you want to do in the field, and I really hope everybody can be successful. But if you disagree, let me know and give me your feedback. That's how we all excel as hunters in the field. This is how we all learn. So if you disagree with me, leave it in the comments below. That's how we all excel as hunters, taking bits and pieces of other people's perspectives. All right, so what to do after a missed shot. So we typically, there's a time and a place for it. We don't mag dump. We don't shoot that first coyote and then mag dump on the second coyote. We're allowed to have 5 rounds in a magazine and 1 bullet in the chamber when we go out into the field. Me personally, I only have a 5-round magazine. I put that in, I rack it, and I have 5 rounds total, not 6. So What to do after a missed shot. I'm not gonna mag dump on that coyote because now I only have 4 rounds left. It's a lot easier to shoot a stationary target than it is a running target across the field. We got really, really, really proficient at stopping coyotes after a shot. We always ask the coyote to stop before the shot. Crap happens. Sometimes we miss. Sometimes we miss the shoulder. Sometimes we wound. We have to give a follow-up shot. But that first shot, you miss that coyote, what we do, we howl at it with no call, no hand call, no e-collar. We howl at that thing with our voice as loud as we possibly can. Now, this is body language. When you see that the gun goes off and you see that run, and that coyote's running, when you see that run turn into a lope, it's probably gonna stop. When you see that lope associated with a head turn, it's going to stop every single time. When that coyote stops to audibly examine, what was that bang? Now I hear a coyote. You see that head turn, it's gonna stop. You have a window of opportunity. It's not super long, but it's a hell of a lot easier to hit a stationary target than a running target. You shoot, you miss, crap happens, that thing takes off, mouth howl at it with your voice, "Ooh!" as loud as you possibly can until your chest hurts. Very, very optimistic. That coyote's probably gonna stop. It's not always, quite often the coyote's gonna stop. And if we get that coyote to stop, that's our follow-up shot. And if that coyote doesn't stop, he didn't play the game. He lives to see another day, and we're gonna come back to that property with a new plan of attack. All right, next one. When coyotes answer. So, I love vocal coyotes on a property. If we're walking out onto a property and we have coyotes that vocalize unprovoked, the very first thing we do is we stop and we do nothing. We stand there and we listen. We heard those coyotes. We were not the catalyst for them to start vocalizing. What do we do next? Absolutely nothing. The reason for this is, who's gonna answer? That individual lone howl or that family group that's ki-eyeing, chattering off, howling, communicating from a half mile, 3/4 of a mile, 1 mile. If they're that far away, we know where they are. We can come up with our own plan of attack of which way the wind is blowing, how are we going to approach it, but who's gonna answer? There could be a coyote 200 yards over to our left, 50 yards over to our right, just over a roll of a hill that we can't see over when we're walking into stand. So when we first hear coyotes unprovoked walking out into a stand, excuse me, when we hear coyotes unprovoked walking out into a stand, our first action is nothing. We listen, who's gonna answer? If there is no answer, then we put together a plan of attack. Which way the wind is blowing, and we cut proximity. We get as close as possible to our effective range to the habitat, and that's where we're gonna make our stand. If we have coyotes that open up a few hundred yards away from us unprovoked, we're immediately going to reorient ourselves and put ourselves into a position for topography to shoot into that direction, especially holding where we can shoot towards our downwind in accordance to where we heard those coyotes vocalizing from. Now, when we get to a stand and there was no unprovoked vocalization, we get to a stand and we vocalize and we have a response. it's gonna be the same action that we took before. Where are they? They know where we are now, but where are they? Do we need to relocate? Do we need to move 50 yards? Do we need to move a quarter mile? Do we need to go back to the truck? Do we need to leave that stand, drive around the block, get to the next farm? So proximity is huge, and I stress it so much, especially this time of year, later in the season. Proximity is huge. If we vocalize, we hear coyotes, the first thing that we're going to do, which way is the wind blowing? Do we have permission to loop around them, to cut distance, closer proximity? Or is it close enough where we can actually pull them in and call them into our area? Now, another thing to look at is ground conditions. If there's snow on the ground, how deep is the snow? And is that coyote going to actually want to burn the caloric intake it's going to take to get from their position to your position? If it's deep, wet, heavy snow, fluffy, if there's no snowmobile trail, if there's nothing cut for a path of least resistance, and that coyote's 3/4 to a mile away, it might come, but probably not. Now, if it was conditions that we had recently where we have snow on the ground, we're biped, we have 2 feet, I'm 6 foot, 215, and every single step I take, I break through that crust of snow, but that coyote is just staying right on top of that crust like I'm walking on concrete. They have everywhere is a path of least resistance. It's like there's no snow on the ground at that point. So depending on the ground conditions is also going to determine what our approach is going to be. If we have a good wind direction and we have good ground condition for the time of year, those coyotes that are 3/4 to a mile away, we're actually going to stick it out, but less calling and more listening. Is it worth us standing on stand? We heard the coyote open up, we know where he is, he let us know where he is, and he knows where we are because we vocalized. My next thing is shut up. Shut up, wait a hot minute, let him tell us where he is. If that coyote opens up his mouth again, is it in the same area or is he actually cutting distance? And that's going to determine the length of stand. So if time elapses and that coyote has not vocalized 3 to 5 minutes and that coyote was 3/4 of a mile away, I'll probably call again. And then I'm going to shut up. And as long as my wind is good, I'll stay on that stand for a solid 30 minutes. Absolutely. So there's multiple different answers to that question of what to do when a coyote actually answers your call. Ground conditions, proximity, relocation. These are all things that are going to be your boots on the ground, time in the field, and take little bits of what I'm saying as my gospel, my suggestions, and everything that we've done has worked in the past. All right, so this next question was, what is the most misread coyote vocalization? My opinion on this is a coyote's bark. And you hear the coyote bark, what was the catalyst for the bark? Did he get a nose full of you? Is it that quote unquote, that booger bark where they're audibly announcing danger associated with smell or an action? And that's just negative Pavlov's reinforcement, conditioning that animal to an action with a sound. So why did that coyote bark? You had a good approach, you had a good wind direction, and you have that pissed off barking coyote. That bark doesn't always mean that booger bark, that the jig is up. So as long as we've had in the past a good approach, a good wind direction, and we have potentially a coyote that barks in the habitat, my go-to thing is I'm gonna piss right back in his Cheerios and I'm gonna bark back at him. What was the catalyst for that coyote to bark? Was it unhappy of another coyote's presence? Was he barking at another coyote? Who knows? If you're confident that coyote was not booger barking at you, we typically give that same frustration back to the coyote, pique interest from that coyote, and give it a different approach of vocally communicating back to that coyote the way we hear that coyote vocalize, regardless if we were calling or not. We want to recaptivate attention, and maybe we're barking at the same thing that coyote was barking at. So that's something that we've done in the past that's been successful. Why some coyotes circle to the downwind and some other coyotes charge in. So a couple of things on this one. That hard charging coyote, depending time of year, early season, they haven't dealt with the negative reinforcement of sound and action and smell. You have that hard charging coyote, those, coming up this year, the 2026 edition pups that are going to be born, they haven't been messed with, they haven't been called to. At that point, come October, they are juvenile adult coyotes at that point. They are fun to communicate, to call in. You get those hard chargers. Now, why do some coyotes circle and some don't? Something I've noticed hunting all over the country, you get west of the Mississippi, your coyote population really starts to increase and your carrying capacity increases. When your carrying capacity increases, you have more competition for food source. So west of the Mississippi, I've definitely noticed more hard charging coyotes coming to prey distress sounds, just using a hand call rabbit squealer, more commitment to prey distress sounds west of the Mississippi, with a more abundant coyote population, much larger carrying capacity for the animal out west. Now, here in our demographic with the eastern coyote, lot more circling, lot more coming to the downwind, lot less competition and more hesitancy to come to a call, because there's less competition amongst the coyote population. They want to have the comfort level of, they heard it, they want to see it, they want to smell it, and know that it's safe to actually come to a call. You'll have those coyotes west of the Mississippi that still circle. I see it so much more often here in the east, in the northeast. And I know this because this is where I live. A lot more loop to the downwind as opposed to commit to a call. Early season, there's a good amount of coyotes that commit to the call. As the season progresses, negative impacts associated with sound, action, associating a smell with danger, there's definitely going to be a lot more hesitation to commit to a call and a lot more downwind loop. So time of year and carrying capacity is the answer to that question of why some coyotes circle and some hard charge in. Now, calling fox. Calling fox can be an absolute blast because I call them a feel-good fox. If you're out, you're coyote hunting, and you're not seeing anything, nothing's responding, you have property where you know that property holds fox, go call in a fox, call in the fox, shoot the fox, and you feel really good about yourself, and that's why I call him a feel-good fox. So what actually changes when you're calling a fox? You're obviously not doing any coyote vocalizations. More repetitive prey distress sounds. So instead of using a rabbit squealer for a coyote and you're hitting multiple different spectrums of tone, more of a monotone, repetitive sound is super captivating to a fox. Super captivating to that fox for that repetitive monotone, throwing, a little bit of agitation to it, and just sounds sick, but super easy, super fun to call in. Coyotes, on the other hand, that's something that I really like to hit multiple spectrums of tone and hit every possible note that I can create out of this call. Not so much with fox, more monotone with fox, more erratic with coyotes. All right, bobcat calling. I personally don't have a lot of experience with bobcat calling. I'll compare this to, so I don't want to preach something that I'm unfamiliar with. The little bits that I have called in bobcats in the past was more of that repetitive fox sound, much longer calling duration, lots of scanning, lots of looking. We can shoot bobcats with thermal here in New York. Very, very, very difficult daytime for bobcats here in New York because bobcats move the way they do, which is super slow. Cats are jerks, and there's not a lot of commitment from them. There's a lot of visual inspection. Having those thermals is super, super, super helpful. If you have a hand scanner and you're daytime calling bobcats, use the hand scanner. You're gonna see that bobcat before you see it with the human eye, and it's gonna let you know that that bobcat's there just doing the sneaky kitty thing, coming in on the fringe and just looking and looking and looking, but actually calling to the bobcat. Repetitive, monotone, longer lasting, longer stands. That's been my luck in the past. And patience and lots of monotone, longer stand duration. So the last one on this page, the biggest stand mistake new hunters make. Something I covered where you screw it up before you even start. Something as silly as slamming the truck door, poor wind approach. Even if your wind direction is good for the stand, what's your wind direction to get to that stand? So just be conscientious of what wind direction you have, what your approach is, and work a little harder for it. Put boots on the ground and a lot more walking. Cut as much distance as you possibly can. And I kid you not, the further you walk, the more success you're gonna have and get into those areas where people are lazy. People are lazy, they haven't put boots on the ground in there, and give yourself the most virgin spots that you possibly can. But the biggest mistake that I think new hunters make is inappropriately using the wind as a direction and not a system. Learn the system and don't just treat the wind like a direction, and recognize that coyote's survival instinct, and that's going to be your best suggestion I can give a new coyote hunter. Don't use the wind as a direction, use it as a system, and recognize how that coyote operates in that system. So please, as always, like and subscribe. It really helps myself and my family out, and I really hope everybody's enjoying this content. The role of a call tone, not just the sound type. So on something as simple as this rabbit squealer, I could take 10 guys, line them up, and give them the same exact hand call. Like, we'll swap germs on this exact call, and you're gonna have 10 different sounds coming out of this same call. So everybody's going to blow into the same call differently. How I'm going to exhaust air, how I'm going to put back pressure with my fingers on the end of the barrel, how we're all going to come up with our own tone call sequence. So the actual role of the call isn't necessarily like it. I market this as a rabbit squealer because it sounds most comparable to that injured rabbit, but ultimately it's the sound of a small distressed animal. So don't just think like rabbit. It's an animal. It's a small mammal in distress. So the actual role of the call is ringing the dinner bell, communicating with that coyote for an easy, opportunistic food source. But I said this before, what was the catalyst for that? Was it a bobcat? Was it a fox? Was it a coyote? what was the catalyst for that small mammal to vocally communicate distress? That's why there's still that downwind loop and hesitation to commit to prey distress sounds. Yes, you do have hard charging coyotes, but yes, statistically, most of the time, there's still that downwind loop to make sure it's safe to come have that free snack. So why, oh, here's a good one. Why hand-tuned calls matter. So every single call, this is where I'm going to advocate for me in my business. So every single call that I build, I audibly tune them to my liking before they leave my shop. This is field ready, field usable, not on a mass production line where bodies are injection molded, a reed is pushed into them under specifications from the machine. They're put into a package and nobody knows what they sound like. Hopefully they have an idea of what sound quality is going to be like before it leaves that factory, but ultimately you are the first person that blows into that call. Every hand-turned call that I build in my shop, I play every single one before it leaves my shop because I want to have the confidence and the satisfaction of knowing if it's field ready for me, it's going to be field ready for the customer that I'm putting it in the hands of. So anybody that orders, super appreciate your business. Why one call is better than carrying 5. So that's a good one. That's a really good one. And it makes me think of carrying this one lanyard as opposed to lugging an e-collar around. I have a very small vocabulary in comparison to an e-collar. So the question actually was, why is one call better than carrying 5? I'm just going to say why one lanyard could potentially be better than the whole entire library of an e-collar. E-collars serve a functional purpose out in the field. Guys are super successful with them. I've been super successful with a very limited vocabulary of the calls that are hanging on one lanyard on my neck. And the reason for that is the patience level that I have, the amount of daytime calling that we've done in the years past, watching the dynamic of coyote behavior, body language, how they move, how they act to a call, the statistics associated with what we anticipate that coyote is going to do associated with our calls, with our sound, and how they are going to progress from their area into the area of the audible picture that we just painted. And then we had that technology change. Daytime calling, nighttime calling, now we're using red lights, and night vision, this is fun, and then thermals. When we had thermals in our hands, it made us very, very, very proficient when the lights went out, especially because of the years of experience we had with daytime calling. And it's time. It was time in the field for us where I would absolutely love taking all of these and going out into the field and being as successful or even more successful than some guys running e-collars. I'm not poo-pooing anybody using an e-collar. I get way more gratification taking nothing and turning it into something, putting it in my audible arsenal, and I didn't push a button to make that happen. I made that happen. I made that sound. I created that. I fooled that animal. It's super gratifying for me. All right. So this next one goes right into something I just said. Building a minimal effective call lanyard. So the calls that I have on my lanyard, both of these are rabbit squealers, but I have them tuned differently. One's a little higher pitch. One's a little lower pitched, little raspier. similar but different. The reason I have two is frost, cold temperatures, wintertime, reeds are moving parts, reeds can fail over the course of time, and the amount of condensation coming out of my chest going through this little barrel increases the chance of condensation, reed freeze. Reeds are moving parts, they can fail. I have a redundant system of having two of these on my neck. I made myself a little bellow squeaker. Something simple like that, just for a coaxing sound if I want to pick up the volume, and my open reed howler. Four calls. That's all I go out into the field with. So, suggestions for people: vocally, a howler, and rabbit squealer. That's my vocabulary. But learning the actual vocabulary of the coyotes, of the different learning the vocalizations of the coyote, of aggression tone, is gonna be clutch on how to start a stand and how to vocally communicate back to the animal. All right. How professional, the call you should reach for first. All right, so time of year. The call you should go to first, earlier in the season, when your season just starts kicking off, we're gonna do a lot of squealing with the rabbit, with my rush rabbit. So early season, though, like, we're gonna have a lot more hard charging coyotes, those 2026 edition that are gonna be born here in the next month or two. They're going to be adult juveniles come October. A lot more commitment to those prey distress sounds. The call you should reach for first. This is going to depend on the time of year. Perspective on my part, come this October, you're going to have those 2026 edition pups that were born here in the next month or two. And come October, they're going to be your adolescent juveniles, your young adult coyotes. You're going to have a lot more of those hard chargers coming into a call. I'm going to use my rush rabbit, and I'm just going to squeal. Get to stand, good perspective. I'm going to do a lot of squealing in October. That time of year is an absolute blast to go out there with your buddies and squeal, prey distress sounds, shoot coyotes. Now, all year we've had, I can't say all year, all season. Our season in New York, October 1st after sunrise until the last Sunday in March. It's basically 6 months out of the year. All season, we've had a lot of luck vocalizing, howling all season long. Early season though, we're really going to be utilizing those prey distress sounds, squealing on my rabbit call, and then as season transitions from latter part of October into November, I want to sound like that transient coyote stepping foot on the ground where I don't belong after that dispersal takes place, and now you have that transient coyote looking for new home range, and I want to sound like that coyote stepping foot on somebody else's ground where I don't belong, and just let off a lone invitational howl and see who answers. We've had so much luck with that. And season long, especially coming into the early part of, call it your pre-coyote rut. And that's also going to vocalize, you're a coyote on somebody else's land, and especially during the breeding season where there's competition, established home range, and especially established core area, a lot more commitment to coyote vocalizations as opposed to prey distress sounds. Most stands throughout the whole entire course of the season, we do a lot more vocalizations as opposed to prey distress sounds. But early season, great time, great success with prey distress sounds with a rabbit squealer. Now, also think of your whitetail buck, and this is a good analogy where You have foliage on the trees, early season, you have ample food source. Now you have depleted food source as the season progresses, the foliage is dropping, there's less vegetation, and then your rut kicks in. The does are getting chased, the bucks are chasing, and it just turns into the sexual marathon. Post-breeding season, food comes into a big part of that animal's survival through the course of winter. So early season, they have food. Then it's that sexual marathon. And what does everybody want to do afterwards? They want to eat. So think of it with coyotes. Early season, give them some food, and then we transition right from that to a lot of vocalizations. But we've had luck with lots of vocalizations throughout the whole course of the whole season, but especially early season, throw some food at them. During the latter part of October into November, we're going to transition to a lot more vocalizations. And then here we are after this time of year right now in March, we are transitioning into the post-rut of coyote breeding. Food source is going to be much more important for the animal, just like the white-tailed deer. We'll actually transition back to more squealing when we're doing daytime calling. Lots more squealing in the daytime and little bits at night, but we're still throwing a lot of vocalizations at nighttime and cutting distance on them. But we're actually transitioning back to more prey distress sounds as the season progresses, from early season food. After that, more vocalizations. And right here where we are right now, we're going to be transitioning back to throwing some food at them. How professionals... Oh, man. So this is a tough one. How professionals think about call selections. So this is a really tough one. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Keep doing it. That's all I can say about that. If you're proficient at what you're doing, keep doing it. We are very proficient at what we do, so it's not broke, so we're not going to fix it, and that's what we're going to keep doing. So how does every single professional think about their call selection when you have that pro staff guy that says, this is the call sequence, these are the sounds that you need to play, this was my stand selection, and these are the sounds that you have to play, and this is tough to say. So, in my opinion, not all, but a lot of pro staff guys are free retail employment for a company's benefit. Now, I had a conversation with a friend of mine about this, and he tells me he's he's field staff for the seed company. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, what do you get out of it? He's like, well, if I sell this amount of product, I get this percentage off on my purchase. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I looked at him and I said, well, I'm field staff for Taco Bell. And he looked at me all confused. And I said, when I make my financial investment on buying a taco, I'm entitled to as many sauce packets as I want, but I had to make my financial investment of buying the taco. And he looked at me all confused, and I go, you are peddling a product for a company, and that's your time, and your time is worth money, but that company doesn't have to give you any tax information for Uncle Sam at the end of the year. You're free retail employment peddling a product for a company, and you still have to make your financial investment to actually buy their product. So what do you actually get out of it? He's not a landowner, but it gave him a sense of belonging into this camaraderie of, I like to think, like-minded outdoorsmen. And I look at myself and what I do. I don't have field staff. I don't have pro staff. I have knowledge and years of experience that I want to pass on to the consumer, onto my consumers. But if you can utilize all of the information that I'm passing on, I want to see people be successful. And biasly, yes, I want to see people be successful using the product that I'm building and putting in your hands. I really want to see you be successful. So it's hard for me to define professionals, and there's companies that I work with. I work with television show called Live the Wildlife. It was on the Sportsman's Channel. It's on the Pursuit Channel. And Gus is such a great guy. And Gus is a professional in the field. And the thing with Gus is he gives credit where credit's deserved. He doesn't coyote hunt. He comes to Andy. He comes to me. He comes out to us, and we set him up for success in the field. But he gives credit where credit's deserved. He doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't have the equipment to do it. And he puts that responsibility on our shoulders to set him up for success. But he gives credit where credit's deserved. And I think that's a big difference, where defining who's actually a professional in the field, just because you can get in front of a camera and you can talk a big game, doesn't mean you're competent to be preaching to somebody. And what I want to pass on to my consumer and anybody watching this video is just passing on knowledge, and hopefully you have the recognition of proficiency, and I want to see people be successful in the field, and biasly, especially when they're using what I build. All right, so please, as always, like and subscribe. It really helps my business. All right. Oh, here's a good one. Why confidence in your call matters. So, when I have a conversation, and I've done this multiple times, I clear my throat, I turn my head, I cough, I clear my chest. I constantly deal with postnasal drip. It's part of my vocabulary at this point, of just clearing my head. So what was the question? Why confidence in your call matters. You gotta have confidence in what you're doing when you go out into stand. Windshield time, practice makes proficiency, will give you confidence. Here's the big thing though. When you get out into stand and you're vocalizing and you want to rip that first howl, and you get that and it just sounded like crap. Don't stop. That sounded awful. Don't stop. Recover as quick as you can. Take the muscle memory that you practiced previously and just go right back into it. We have conversations. I cough, you sneeze, you burp, you fart. We have audible imperfections when we're calling, when we're talking, when we're having conversation and communication with other people. It's part of human nature. I've heard plenty of deer cough, sneeze, like those vocals, like what the heck was that? And I thought somebody was hiking down a trail. It sounded like me. That cough. And here comes a buck. Animals do the same thing. There's audible imperfections with vocalizations. So don't think for a minute, oh man, I just screwed this up because I hit the wrong tone, I hit the wrong pitch. Don't stop. Just recover as quick as you possibly can. Just recover. It was nothing more than a burp, a fart, a hiccup. Recover, get that sound out, and then take a breath. Just recover as quick as you can. So have confidence in your calling. All right. Teaching with the same calls that I hunt with. And yes, this is the lanyard that I go out into the field with when we're pursuing coyotes or any predator every single night. So I like to practice what I preach. I like to use what I use in the field with what I talk about here on the YouTube channel. All right. What makes a call deadly? Ooh, I am going to say nothing makes the call deadly. The caller makes the call deadly. The stand placement, the setup, the wind direction, where you put your body, where you put yourself into proximity with habitat, your effective shooting range, all of the things that we previously discussed doesn't make the call deadly. It makes the caller deadly. Apply all of the information and it's going to make you a killer out in the field. All right. The future of predator calling. All right, that's that's a good one. All right, so the future of predator calling and where I fit into that. So I just turned 45, and my daughter Kennedy is going to be 12 here in April. As soon as she turns 12 next month, she is a legal hunter in the state of New York. She'll have her youth hunting license. She's the future. She is going to be my first future of predator hunting of my next generation in New York State. She's my kid. She's not legislation's kid. And it really, really gets under my skin that legislation dictates environmental conservation with ulterior motives. We have a lot of strikes against us as outdoorsmen, and the more we can advocate for what we do in the field for our pleasure, our enjoyment, but conservation. And conservation is defined as wisely using our resources. Just be good humans, be good, like-minded outdoorsmen, conservationists in the field. And it's a little shameful for me to see the desecration of an animal, the coyote, that we have a passion and a love to pursue. And there's a lot of negative narrative associated with what we do in the field. So please be very, very mindful of your social media accounts and what you're putting out for the public to see, because it's not just dudes like me that can be like, oh, that's heck yeah, that's awesome. Try to be a little bit more tasteful with camera angle, photo, the desecration of the animal. Legislation dictates environmental conservation, and they are going to be the downfall of predator hunting. It happened in California. It's happening on the West Coast. It's partially starting to happen on the East Coast. Please be very mindful of what you're doing on social media so we can continue to pursue predators in our areas or anywhere in the country. Just be mindful of what you're doing on your social media accounts, please. And it's not just for me, it's for our next generation. And I'm biasly saying this because my daughter's really looking forward to going out and enjoying my life. And this isn't just a hobby of mine. This is a passion of mine, but it's also my livelihood. This is my business. So that question, the future of predator calling and where I fit into that, it's not just me. It's my family, it's our next generation, and all of us as like-minded outdoorsmen can really make a difference with that, with just being better humans, and be very mindful of what you do out in the field. One negative impact, even if it's the isolated incident, can negatively affect everything that we do as like-minded outdoorsmen because of legislation and ulterior motives. So just be good humans and make good decisions out in the field. All right, so this last one that I have, late breeding season transitions. So I kind of touched on that a little bit with food source, comparing white-tailed deer, foliage, food, rut, and now we're back to food. So very, very comparable with our approach on coyotes. We're going to throw food at them, prey distress sound. I'm going to use my rabbit squealer, get those early season hard charging coyotes. We're going to transition right into vocals. After peak breeding, coming down post rut for coyotes, we're going to do a lot more daytime calling, a lot more rabbit squealing, and we're still going to do all the same methodology of preparation of wind direction. Adjusting stand time in March. So this is a hard one to answer. My annual answer is my stand length is typically going to determine the habitat that's surrounding me and proximity to agricultural districts or big woods. The size of the home range of a coyote. Every coyote's going to have core area. Every coyote's going to have a home range. If there's more agricultural, there's going to be more food source. There's going to be more fields. There's going to be more grain on the ground. There's going to be more mice, more voles. There's going to be more food source. There's going to be more rabbits. So those agricultural areas are going to have overlapping home ranges, but you still have those core areas. There's going to be more coyotes. Big open hardwood timber, yes, there's going to be coyotes there, but a lack of food source. So depending on not necessarily the time of year, but the habitat that I'm calling and the areas that I'm calling is really going to dictate how many coyotes, how many coyotes within proximity of my location, and how many family groups am I actually communicating with is going to determine the length of stand and time that I'm actually going to stay on that property. If I'm in damn near most properties, I'm confident to say I'm at the right place, but I'm at the wrong time, and I'm going to leave. So stand length is really going to depend on size of habitat versus time of year. So that was a big, broad topics of conversations I discussed. Now, it's coming from my gospel. It's not your gospel. It's not his gospel. It's something that I want everybody to recognize, where my proficiency doesn't necessarily mean this is my gospel and I'm shoving it down your throat. Take little bits of it, and I really hope everybody can have success in the field with it. It may not apply in your area. I know it applies in our area, and I know we've done very well with it over the years. So I really hope everybody liked the content that I shared. And if you got this far into the video and you made it through the whole entire thing, please comment at the very end. Start in your comment RCC, Rush Custom Callers. Just type in RCC, leave a comment. Anybody that does that, I'm going to put you into a drawing and I'm going to ship you out a free gift. So if you liked this, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and there's a lot more content that I'm really excited to share with everybody. And thanks for watching.